Chapter 11. The Time Trap. Mason halts near the base of the pyramid. On the structure's flat top gleams a golden throne, and on it is the mummified corpse of the former priestess. In the moonlight, Mason sees Zal, the squat priest, standing there, and beside him a group of other natives. Lesa is there, wearing the feather robe in the grip of two natives. The low chant grows louder. Abruptly, Zal turns, removes the breastplates and girdle from the corpse, and lifts the mummy from the throne. He swings the body thrice around his head, sending it arcing down till the black waters of the lake break in a silvery spray. The mummy floats briefly. Then there is a brief commotion, and the thing is dragged down. It vanishes. The chanting swells to a triumphant roar. Mason moves forward cautiously, the cudgel in his hand, as Zal lifts the feather cape from Eleza's bare shoulders. She stands nude in the moonlight, a glorious statue of loveliness. Vainly she struggles as she is dragged to the throne. Seated within it, her arms and legs bound securely. Zal beckons, and a curry comes forward, a deep bowl in his hands. Others advance, bearing a long pole to which a native is bound. A great shout thunders out. From the shadows men come, the Curry tribe thronging about the base of the pyramid, watching the drama being enacted on its summit. Mason draws back, his fingers whitening on the club. Zol's hand moves swiftly. A bubbling scream of agony comes from the captive. Blood fountains from his throat. Deftly, the priest thrusts the bowl beneath the gaping wound, filling the vessel. The men on the pyramid are silent, waiting. Zal dips his hands into the bowl, lifting them dripping red. He smears the blood on Eleza's nude body, till from neck to ankles her slender form gleams crimson. He lifts the knife again, lowering it gently. Its point touches Eleza's bare stomach. The girl cries out sharply. This, Mason guesses, is the beginning of the tattooing ceremony. For months thereafter, Eleza will endure the frightful torture of sharp knives, of agonizing pain, of pigments rubbed into the raw wounds, till the body is covered, like the priestess, with fantastic designs. Again the knife comes down. Again Eleza cries out, a soft, frightful cry that sends red madness surging into Mason's brain. He lifts the cudgel as he springs forward. A line of natives bar him from the pyramid, but he breaks through the curry with a murderous sweep of his weapon that sends a man sprawling, head smashed into pulp. Shouting, Mason sprints forward. Behind him he hears a deep-throated roar. He ignores it, racing up the rough stones of the pyramid that offer easy foothold. On the summit, men are milling about, staring down, their weapons drawn. Before they can organize, he is among them. He sees a snarling face, pale in the moonlight, looming up before him, and swings the club. The man goes down, screaming. "Take him!" Zal shouts. "Take him alive!" Then suddenly the priest is racing forward, a spear in his hand, arm drawn back for the throw. Mason sends the cudgel spinning at his opponent. His aim is true. The missile crashes into Zol's face, obliterating the brown features in a smear of blood. Red spurts from the man's flattened nose. Screaming, he goes down. But already a dozen curry are on Mason. Grimly he slugs and kicks and claws. A bare foot kicks viciously at his face. He twists his head away in time to avoid the blow. But Mason goes down at last, fighting desperately. He feels his hands being drawn behind him. Sees Eleza straining forward on the throne, her body darkly crimson. She cries, "Kent, are you hurt? Did they—" "I'm okay," he says, and Zal comes forward, his ruined face bloody and hideous. He glares down at the white man. "Soon you will die." His whisper is furry soft. "But not slowly, no." He turns to the lake, lifts the sacrificial knife. "Dweller in the abyss," he chants. "The priestess is prepared. Soon she will serve you." Mason strains to escape from the arms that hold him. Useless. The curry below the pyramid roar applause at the priest. Then silence, and cutting through it a thin, high scream that makes the short hairs prickle on Mason's neck. There is defiance in that scream, desperate rage and horror, and something above and beyond all these. The priest hesitates, looks down, his jaw drops. Mason turns his head. On the beach, knee-deep in the black waters, is Yana, the priestess, nude, a golden statue in the moonlight. Her black hair streams in the wind. She lifts her arms, her red lips part, and from them comes again that dreadful cry, alien, summoning, summoning Wat. The priest shrills, "Slay her! Slay her!" The others stream down from the pyramid summit, racing towards Yana, save for two who still hold Mason motionless. The priestess cries again that strange call. In Zol's face, Mason reads something that makes him look out across the lake. A few ripples trouble the black surface, that is all. No, there is more. Something is moving towards the shore. A dark and tremendous bulk that glides through the waters with unhurried smoothness. Something that can never exist in a sane world. And now Mason remembers Yana's words. "I have learned much, the words of power that called the thunderer from the lake. Once before it was done, ages ago, and the dweller rose from the depths. The god of the Kuripuri has answered the summoning of his priestess. Through the dark inky waters the thing glides, and a black shining bulk arises in the moonlight, a flat and serpentine head and a long undulating column of a neck. Zol's face is a Gorgon mask of horror abysmal. The natives are almost at the lake's shore, and they shrink back. Yana screams her weird call, "Aye!" and the cry turns into a shriek as the monster is upon her. The giant head swoops, lifting the girl's body, dangling from immense jaws. Cold reptilian eyes survey the village. As the girl vanishes into the thing's maw, the creature lumbers up onto the beach. Desperately, Mason tries to rationalize his fear. Some prehistoric survival, an aquatic reptile that has dwelt for ages in this secret crater, untouched by the changes of evolution. It is possible, he knows. Always there has been tales of such monsters filtering through the jungles, gigantic beasts that dwell in the Patagonian swamps and the hidden fastnesses of the Andes. Yet he cannot control the cold horror that creeps over him at the sight of the thing that is emerging from the lake. Its body is over 50 feet long, torpedo-shaped, with great flippers that propel it slowly forward. The snake-like head and neck writhe and curve. All over its shining reticulated body grows algae. Shells cling to the armored hide. It comes plunging up into the village, and the Kuripuri go stampeding in a frenzied panic that makes them easy prey for their god. The two natives holding Mason go with the rest. Only Zol stands his ground, glaring around, bruised lips working silently. He sees Mason. He springs forward, knife upraised. This time Mason is ready. Grinning unpleasantly, he dives at the priest, tackling him viciously. Zol steps down with his knife, sending a white-hot streak of agony along Mason's ribs. The white man clutches his enemy's wrist, holds it motionless. Yelling rage, Zol bends his head and tries to sink his teeth in Mason's throat. The screams of the fleeing Kuripuri come up from below, and a cry closer, nearer. "Aleza! Kent, the devil god! It's coming here!" The sweating, bloody face of Zol is a gargoyle mask. The man's breath is foul in Mason's nostrils as the priest tries to reach the enemy's throat with his teeth. Beyond, a gargantuan shadow in the moonlight, Mason sees the head of the monster coming closer. Mason lets go of the other knife wrist. Zol is not expecting that move. Before he can recover, the white man has gripped the priest by the neck and the crotch and hurled him up in midair. Mason's muscles crack under the strain. He spins about swiftly, staggering. The priest tries to stab down and misses. He has no other chance. Out of the night comes rushing the devil god, silent and menacing. The huge head is not 12 feet from the pyramid summit when Mason lets go of his captive and sends Zol hurtling straight for the monster. His aim is true. The jaws drip slightly, gripping the priest. One agonized shriek Zol gives, then his bones and flesh are ground into pulp between the remorseless fangs. Mason waits to see no more. There is time to free the girl. He leaps to the throne, picks up her bound nude form, and slings it over his shoulder, hoping that Aleza will suffer no injury by such treatment. But it is that or death, for already the monster's head is snaking out as Mason leaps down the pyramid's side. Keeping his balance with difficulty, he is trying to reach the passage that leads into the structure, and he succeeds just as the giant reptile's jaws click closer than Mason cares to guess. But they are safe, for the monster cannot reach them in the narrow tunnel. Mason retreats further into the darkness, warily trying to pierce the gloom. Other Kuripuri might have retreated here. Perhaps, though, their panic fear has driven all thought but instant flight from their minds. Later, Mason realizes that this is indeed the case, but at present he is busy freeing Eliza, comforting her, hysterical tears as well as he can. But there is no sound from outside. Either matters had quieted down, or it is difficult to hear within the pyramid. Mason draws Eliza close, and she too, frightened and exhausted to resist, relaxes in the man's arm and presently sleeps. Mason does not arouse her. Though his position is cramped, he endures it, fearing that any movement on his part will awaken the girl. Within an hour or more had passed, he judges it's time to move. "Eliza," he whispers. "Kent, what's wrong?" "Nothing," he tells her, "but we'd better be moving." The girl arises and follows Mason to the portal. Peering out into the moonlit night, they can see nothing of the Kuripuri, through a distant commotion in the jungle hints of the monster's activity. Mason is quick to act. Seizing Eliza's hand, he hurries around the pyramid's base and slips through the village, keeping carefully in the shadows. Once the girl pauses to pick up a discarded length of cloth and wrap it about her nude body. Both of them, shivering in the cool night air, will have been glad to search for warmer clothing, but they dare not spare the time. They head for the pass in the crater's walls. "You can reach it in the fourth part of a day," the priestess said. If anything, she had overestimated the distance. Presently, Eliza and Mason reached the gap, having seen nothing of either the Kuripuri or the monster. Below them lay a broad stretch of moonlit jungle, slanting down to a distant horizon. Far, far beyond that horizon, Mason guesses, lay the Atlantic Ocean, the ocean sea of a pre-Columbian Europe. For a moment a queer thought is strong in his mind. He would like to visit the lost strange world, dim in the forgotten past. How odd it would be to see and speak with the legendary figures of history. He sees the time ship half a mile away. It lies in a little clearing in the forest, the moon rays reflecting from it in a blaze of cold brilliance. Mason wishes he had brought a weapon. There might be jaguars, perhaps even the prehistoric giant sloth, lumbering through the teeming jungle. Night prowlers are abroad, but they do not menace the two humans. Once some beast stalks them for a while, they can hear it rustling in the underbrush, but it gives up presently and disappears. And once a jewel-bright macaw flutters sleepily across their path, screaming its harsh cry. But they come to the ship without hindrance. The Kuripuri have apparently feared to enter it, for Mason finds nothing amiss within the craft. He feels oddly relieved when he has closed the port, locking Eliza and himself within. "I hope nothing was wrecked when we crashed," he tells the girl. "It wouldn't be pleasant." Mason sets to work examining the instruments. For more than an hour he puzzles over the intricate dials and gauges, something he has learned from Grettir Klon and more from Murdoch. So after a time he feels that it might be possible to return to the future world from which they had come. "This dial," he says slowly, "indicates our time rate, I think. Each time we stop, a permanent record of that halt is marked on the dial. Those red spots, see? This one at 0 is your own world, I imagine, where the ship was built. And this dot further up is right under the needle. That's where we are now. And the third dot is where we left Murdoch and Eric. If I can set the controls to that time sector." It was another half hour before Mason is satisfied. He tests the mechanism and lifts the ship 50 feet into the air. The atomic power works smoothly enough. With a grim nod at Eliza, Mason throws the time switch. Blackness, a second, an hour, or an aeon, a brief eternity in which there is no consciousness of time. Then light comes again. The tower of the giant ants springs into visibility nearby. They have reached their destination. The amazingly accurate controls of the craft have brought them back to the lost world of the future. But something is wrong. From the tower's summit, a horde of giant winged ants are pouring down, racing towards the ship. On the ground below lays the crushed form of another monster, but of Murdoch and Eric there is no trace. Instantly Mason guesses the reason. They have come too far. A few moments or a few hours. No longer, certainly. His familiarity with the instruments helps him now. He makes a quick adjustment and again moves the time control. Blackness and light. The ship has apparently not moved. Only the sun is in a different position in the sky, and the horde of ants has gone. Looking down for a brief incredible moment, Mason sees a replica of the time ship with two figures in it, rushing forward, colliding in midair with a huge ant. And as he watches, the ship vanishes. It is gone, back, Mason knew, to the pre-Columbian South American jungle. The ant, crushed, is falling towards the ground, towards two figures, missing them by a few feet, Eric and Murdoch. They wave tiny hands upwards, gesticulating. Mason sends the ship down, grounds it, and flings open the port. Toward the craft raced the two men, eyes wide with hope that they had long abandoned. Eric pushes Murdoch aboard and springs after him. "By El-Il, you come in time, Maison. Let's get out of here quick." Murdoch is fumbling with the controls. The time ship lifts and lances across the desolate plain. At last the four are reunited. Now, Mason thinks triumphantly, they can seek out Gregor Klon, seek the master and slay him. End of chapter 11.